Hi everyone, my name's Max. Welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. Today I'm joined with our franchise for Vernon North, Al. G'day Al, how you doing, man?
Hello, good. Yourself?
I always say I'm always in the shit. It's only the depth that varies. But yeah, that's pretty much how it is. Bit of a firefighter maybe. But look, man, thanks for popping into the showroom / office again. And, you know, I'm looking forward to this one. I think, you know, up to this point, we've been fairly categorical on what subject matter we're trying to deal with. And we're going to definitely touch on a very specific subject today. But it's one that come out of a conversation that you and I had probably a week ago now. And, I mean, we're fairly similar, you know, both carpenters, both general contractors and builders. And as you kind of just started to cover off something that was happening that day in the business, we both kind of amped up and we were like, yeah, that'd make a really good podcast.
Yeah.
And so, you know, today the podcast is you can't make pigs fly and it bothers the pig. Now, that's a statement that I've actually heard Al use a couple of times, and it's very relevant. Today we're going to chat a little bit about our relationship as builders and general contractors with the kind of labor that you're going to recruit to obviously help you build a business and, of course, more importantly, you know, get projects out the door. So, Al, I'm going to get you to maybe just, you know, start with an intro, give us maybe some background and some context, and then we'll start drilling down on some detail about how we might be able to sort of counter some of those things. So give us the background, give us a bit of context, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's kind of like you say, on the heels of that conversation, but it is also a problem that we come across a lot of times, and I guarantee you it's a problem that a lot of other contractors face, it kind of stems from the fact that our business is a little bit of a mystery to anybody who doesn't operate a contracting business.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure anybody can attest to the fact that, you know, when they meet a client for the first time and maybe their business is new, it's an uphill battle. You kind of looked down upon when you even start the process. So it kind of touches on the fact that, you know, like, people don't understand what things cost, you know, what we're charging for, why we're charging it, you know, why we pay employees certain amount of wages, you know, kind of just all the structure around that.
So I like with what we're doing is, and we were going to touch on, you know, so what we want to, I think let's lead out with the price shoppers.
Yeah.
Right. And then what we'll do is we'll move into the whole recruitment and, you know, having subs and, you know, staff, because I think that's the bigger proportion of conversation that we had the other day.
Yeah.
But let's start talking about, so, you know, I think what you just mentioned before we went on air here is that you can't sell to the unsellable, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So what if if you said to me, or I said to you, don't sell to the unsellable, if there's people out there or prospective clients that are focused mostly on price, what as it relates to our, you know, our subject matter or our title, you can't make pigs fly and it bothers the pig.
Yeah.
Give us what do we mean by that?
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, I'm not going to say I created that saying. It is a little bit modified from some business lessons that I have learned. But yeah, basically, like you say there, if a customer his value is based solely on price, yeah, his priority is all about getting. He thinks that the best deal is going to come from the lowest price.
It's such a misnomer.
It is. It's your job as a contractor to A, recognize that, and B, recognize that if this person isn't going to listen to you, he's a complete waste of your time, because unless you're selling price services, you know, which there is a market for that in the industry. But, you know, if you want to be do large projects and be an actual general contractor, you have to learn how to deliver value. And if the person you're selling to isn't receptive to that value, like I say, if they're only looking, it's not like buying a car where you just compare car by car and be like, okay, well then this guy's just going to get me the best deal. That is a one-way ticket to a disaster in a home renovation.
So when you've got, I mean, I know I've done it, you've probably done it as well. I mean, can you recall times when you've got someone who is obviously not so much, I mean, everybody was worried about how much they're going to pay. Everyone wants to know that, and that's why we do the, you know, fixed price contracts, gives them peace of mind and security. But when you've sensed that somebody is all about price, but let's say you've then tried to convince them, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're trying to make pigs fly, and it bothers the pig, because every time you'll talk to them about value and about reliability, durability, all of those sorts of positives, which represents value in the relationship between them, a homeowner, and the general contractor, you're just beating your head against the wall.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say that you don't want to convince anything of anybody. That's part of selling somebody, hard selling and trying to convince
Closing,
them. You don't want to do that. That's I think something I had to learn early on. But you want to do is you want to display the value and let the person convince themselves, because you're never going to convince them. Try having a salesman convince you of anything. You're just gonna resist it.
Is this why it's important, I think, to have a sales process, but it's also very important to have a very much a mental script.
Yes.
That you lay out the value, and then if they respond to that in a positive fashion, then you move to the next gate.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you're stuck at that initial conversation where they're always really circle back around to price, you and I both know now, I know where this is going to end up. They are price orientated. Their decision making process is all hinged on the price, the lowest price.
Yeah.
And that's where you end up sort of just you'd walk away, would you not?
You would.
How do you close that deal out?
Yeah, well, I would try a little bit. You can attack it with hypotheticals. If you're
so you're trying to put a stone in their shoe.
Exactly. So if you're at that point, which is last week we did talk about qualifying when to talk about the price. So if you're in that conversation, you want to use hypotheticals. Okay, Mr. Customer, if you had the cash, would you move forward? Right. And then you're going to find out if it's really a problem. Because if he says, if it was the cash, well, then it's not the problem. Right. Then you uncovered the fact that they're still willing to move forward, but that price was just a price objection. So you can do it. But like I say, if the person there are some people out there that are just stuck on price and they just want to pay the lowest price, and that's all that you have to recognize that.
Yeah. So there's definitely, it'd be fair to say there's subconscious red flags in your mind or in your person that when you hear someone going down that path, immediately I know what I got.
Yeah, but don't get your guard up and get all defensive and get hurt and take it personally. It's just a harder battle to fight, right? And
you've got to work for the sale.
For sure, yeah.
That's the way it is. But you've got to be conscious that you can't make pigs fly, and it seriously bothers the pig.
Yeah, so that's where you will notice it when you go in there, when you're non-experienced and you're kind of just starting out and you're a little apprehensive about the sales process and you start and you're kind of shaky with stuff. That's where you need to just do a lot of them. You have to get a lot of them under your belt.
And that's important. It's like when you go to the gym, and if you want to be so buff like our cameraman here, old Cam, you got to do the reps.
Yeah.
You've got to show up enough times and you've got to do the reps. And I think what you just alluded to is that when you're trying to perfect your sales process and your sales skills, you got to fail more times than you're going to succeed. It's just the way it is.
I see. This is one example I see, not just in our industry. I had to fight with this as well too. Is that for some strange reason there's this mentality that if something is resistant, people are like, "Oh, it's not meant to be. Oh, it's too hard. It's giving me resistance, so I'm not going to go down that path." I've battled with that a little bit, but we talk about, like you said, a plane needs resistance to lift. You need, that's
resistance will build muscle mass.
Exactly. Yeah. You need that pressure to advance your skills. So if you think this is going to be easy, you're going to walk into somebody's house and you're going to sell renos, no problem.
I don't think any of our GCs watching expect it to be easy.
Okay.
I just think that they're not really sure on what I'm going to experience and how, when I fail, is that acceptable? And I think it's absolutely, as long as you've got a bit of a framework where you understand what it's about. And I would say that you would go to a situation, someone would be like, do we not get it every time? Oh, that's more than I expected.
Yeah.
Do we only get that every time you go out and do a first meeting?
Yeah, expect it. If you expect it, then you're not going to be disappointed when you're not expecting it, right? Expect the worst case scenario. Expect a hard client. Expect to be delivering your full value package to this client in your meeting. Every client gets treated the same, and you will have great success.
If you persist, because I know that you've had a client in the past that had a low 5-figured expectation and budget, and by the time it was all said and done, either through the negotiation phase in the sales process and or change orders throughout the project, it increased maybe 3 or 4 times the original budget indication that the client had given.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, we did do a job. We actually got the job too. So.
Right. So you close that deal as well. And that was for 4 times what she initially said.
Exactly.
So I think to help people in that process where they've got to differentiate between, am I just trying to make a pig fly here, or am I just actually working, around the don't sell to the unsellables? But I think you do have to go through a few situations where you try a few things. You don't give up just because you get pushback.
Yeah. And then another quick one that is kind of on the heels of what we talked about last week there is you got to be a listener. If the client is only telling you and being very aggressive and trying to control the situation and not letting, like, you don't have to be in control of the conversation, but you have to be in control of the sales process. It's your business. You're selling your service. They're buying your product, your service. You don't go into McDonald's and start telling them how to build their burgers, right? They got to follow your process. So if you reiterate that to them in a manner they can digest it, it's not abrasive, then they will listen to it. Now, like, that's where, like I said, if you, I've had numerous ones where I've walked out of it right away because I just knew it wasn't. It just you just know when you walk in there that you kind of go through the motions just to get out there. But if the person is taking control, they're saying, I want this, you have to do this, and they're not listening into your ideas and they're pushing you around, then, sometimes it's good to tuck tail and just get out of there to avoid any kind of confrontation. But that's very, very rare that happens.
And I think too, if you're new at it, or maybe if you're not so new at it, to walk in and then have a client say, well, I think this bathroom should be renovated for $7,000. We can we sort of take offense because we're going, well, how am I going to move them to a $17,000 cost when realistically we know the numbers?
Yeah.
And you've heard me say this before, buyers are liars.
Yeah.
There's a hot tip for today.
Yeah.
We've all done it where we've walked in because we don't want to spend any more than we have to spend.
Holding your cards to your chest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and ask for that rig for $10,000 less than what I think it's worth.
Yeah.
And then let old mate work really hard to try and get me up to where he thinks, because I know once I go high, I can never come back down again. But if I start low, it's just a process of building up and then making them show me the value, and slowly I'll give up, a little bit more ground. And you've seen that happen with homeowners. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Because we do have, we have a challenge because, the wall of distrust that is with the general population as far as homeowners and general contractors are concerned, it's up there, and we have to work hard to show value. The more value we show, the more the wall starts to come down, the more credibility that we can sort of ooze in our process. Yeah. And that's why I think it's important in the process of moving, a pig perhaps to an actual buying client. It's just that the touch points, 8 to 12 touch points is what it takes before you can close a deal.
Yep.
There's no way that I'm going to buy a car off of one phone call or one visit. No. It's just not going to happen.
Your psychological process in your brain won't let you will have buyer's remorse. You will feel bad. You will reject it. And that's a great example because you reverse that. If you meet a client and, the best example I give for that is, if you meet a girl and you ask her to marry her on your first date, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's just so stupid. So, we just want to make sure that in our process, we are not setting ourselves up for failure, and our expectations are making sure that they're not unrealistic.
Yeah.
So I work hard, because I sell franchises, to just, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So how are clients or homeowners going to get to know you, the general contractor? You want to have a good website. You want to be able to sort of let them get to know your brand and your business before they even talk to you.
Yeah.
And then once they pick the phone up and talk to you, if you're going to convert them from a pig because you think, oh, this is a pig because it's all price orientated. Yeah. But as they see more value, they warm to you, they start to like you, they start to trust you, and therefore they're going to do business with you eventually. So that system, I think, is super important to have in your mental, psyche ready to roll out every time you do a meeting.
For sure. And then the internet, and that helps a lot with that because there's a lot of pre-sales kind of qualifying that can be done automatically if you have some videos, if you have some video, even any online content. It's the print content's hard because people, like, very few people actually will read it. Video is taking off these days. Produce a video, say hello, here's my name. You anything to get that your competition isn't doing. How's that going to hurt you, right? How is that going to hurt you if your initial email to meet the client has a little video about you telling them what to expect at that first meeting? right?
Yeah, look, and I think, what you don't know, you don't know. So that's really the reason we rolled out the podcast and the YouTube channel, is to just give information and insight. It's some guys and gals might look at this and go, well, I know that already.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Go and execute. But there'll be a large percentage, because you and I both, even though we've done our time in two separate countries, when I come over here, there were so many similarities to the construction training process.
Yeah.
It will teach us how to knock nails into wood, to build it plumb and square and straight, but they never really drill deep and hard on the other side of having a skill, and that is to be able to sell the skill and manage the business that sells that skill.
Yeah, and then we're giving, what we're trying to do, at least what I'm trying to give you guys, is real relevant information, because I've looked for this information online, and it's there in bits and pieces, and it's convoluted. A lot of the guys aren't very good on camera. You can't, how are you going to watch a guy who has a poorly produced video and he's got talking about, say, estimating, and you can't even stand his voice, right? So the information we're giving you, or that I'm portraying here, is stuff that I use every day, experiences that and success. I'm literally giving you my secrets, because we both know you can have the secret playbook handed to you. You still have to execute.
Yeah. So let's pivot slightly. Let's still talk about pigs that can't fly and that don't appreciate it. And that relates to recruitment. So you're out there, like you've got a pipeline packed full of work. You're busy for the next 6 months at least, maybe 8. And so the challenge then is, once you've done your sales process and you've won that work, and now you've got those schedule packed tight for the next 6 to 8 months, obviously you can't do all of that work and continue to sell on the tools, which is why you need to recruit a team. So this is where that conversation, or this podcast, really sort of started. The idea for this subject in this podcast started. And that was, when we go out and we go, okay, we need carpenters. Recruitment. When we talk about scaling a business, the two things you need is, you need to be a good talent scout, and then you need to maintain a good culture and understand the influence it has on your bottom line, both negative and positively. So we go and put together recruitment initiatives, and then you get phone calls from guys. So let's get that ball rolling. So, okay, so we do our part at corporate, and we go and put together, and you and I worked on some scripting for lead carpenter or foreman carpenter or whatever. And then you start getting resumes, and then you go into the phone call. So just give us a case study or a snapshot of that phone call where you're now talking to a pig.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody who doesn't, when we're starting recruiting and you get a guy, we get a lot of guys that have a lot of experience and have been in the game for a while. I get it. They want say 45,
they
50,
want maximum return.
Yeah, they want, and I get it. You have all the skills, you might have all your own tools, you might have all in your own truck. Like I say, you've been in the game for 20 plus, 30 plus years. You don't really need anybody to tell you what to do. Maybe you can just take a quote and a small direction, and then you'll do the work, and you have a history of doing good work, and you're just kind of scratching your head. I want to make more money. Why won't my boss pay me $45 an hour? So that's kind of the battle we have with recruiting guys, because everybody wants, it's an expensive world to live in.
Sure.
Right. So people want to maximize how much, income they generate. Unfortunately, what you're worth is paid heavily on risk and the value you provide to your employer.
So let's cut to the chase. Essentially, there's manufacturers, there's wholesales, and there's retailers. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but in your business, you are selling directly to retail.
Yes.
So you are selling retail.
Yes.
Then what we're doing is we're turning around to recruit labor to do the work, and we buy that labor at wholesale.
Yes.
And then we turn around and we mark that up and we on-sell that at retail.
Yes.
That is a basic business model that's been around forever. So what the thing that insults us, which is this really the core of this conversation, is you'll get the guy or gal exactly like you just sort of designed, that they have the skills and the tools and all that sort of stuff, and they come in and they want to work for you under a wholesale situation, but they want to charge you full retail price. And so this is what becomes offensive. And so what I guess we've got to work out is that do we try and convert that pig into someone that sees value in coming and working for us, even though they're now working at wholesale, or do we try or do we just try and just cut those guys loose? And so with when we're talking about retail, the retail wholesale model, whether and I didn't really realize this either, because I remember having an attitude that would say to building superintendents, right, or supervisors, we're the guys on the tools that make you look good. Now, he wouldn't disagree, but he wouldn't give me more money.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to leverage off that we make you look good and we do all the work and it's the finished product is because of us. And I would use that as leverage to try and get more money.
Yeah.
But what I didn't understand was that I was never going to get any more money because I chose to sell my services at wholesale because that allowed them to make some money and operate a business. But what I failed to realize is that they would do all the branding, they would do all the marketing, they would deal directly with the clients. Like you said before, they would take all the risk, and I would spend zero money on marketing because I was okay on the tools. I was pretty good at what I did, so I would get called up and I'd kept busy. What I never realized is that how much advertising budget that I spend? None. So I think what these guys don't do, which is what is that they want to demand these full-blown retail rates, but it doesn't fit into the model. So it's literally oil and water.
Yeah.
So is it the same as talking to a price shopper where you try and make sense to these guys or gals who are demanding the retail charge, or it's got to be the same thing? It's like at some point they'll get it or they will not get it, and they don't want to fly and they don't appreciate it, bothers them for us to give them a hard time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then you're most likely, I don't want to, put any words in anyone's mouth and brand anybody, but at that point, you're kind of dealing with a little bit of an ego of somebody, right? If they want $50 an hour, they think they're the bee's knees and they deserve
and they might get it.
They
won't get it consistently.
They won't get it consistently for sure. Because like I mentioned when we, a couple minutes ago is we sell value and security. So we're taking risks, and the employee doesn't, have the 4-year lease on the shop space.
Yeah,
the employee doesn't have a fleet of trucks he has to be responsible of paying for every month. He doesn't have workers' comp he has to pay for.
So how do they respond to you because obviously there'd be people that are sitting there going, yeah, Alex, stick it to them. But how have you found that as a rebuttal?
Well, that's why we're having this conversation, because they literally don't care, and I don't blame them, because
what you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly. And and the example you just gave there, I climbed that ladder when I was young, and I'm doing all the work. It's bit me right in the face. I went to my boss, and I'm pretty hot-headed, when I try to portray myself and asking for raises. Like I'm very respectful, but you're working hard, and what you don't know, you don't see. I've never ran a business when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
I run a business now, so I'm looking at that. I'm looking at myself when I talk to my boss about that, and I'm like, the way he treated me was exactly the way I need to be treated, because I had no risk. I was, all I had to do was show up to work. Everything was done. There was no accounts payable. There's no accounts receivable. But like I mentioned, most employees don't care for that, but they don't understand that, anything above market value, that, if I'm paying a guy $45 an hour, he's got a labor overhead that I got to put on him for accountant, workers' comp and stuff like that. So if I'm paying, say a guy $30 an hour, there's a percentage on that's going to bring that up to, maybe $40 an hour that I have to sell that service to. So you're going to, if a guy comes up to you, or if you're going to ask an employer for $45 an hour, and he's selling his labor out at, like, say $38, $40 an hour and marking it up, well, now he's got to raise his price $6, $7, $8, $9 an hour. Well, now you've just pushed him out of the market. He's not going to be able to compete. He's going to be asking way too much, because the market dictates what's available.
And your ability to sell, because I know that your markups are healthy, and you obviously know your numbers, so you cover all your overheads, outgoings, and profits. And so your ability to then sell. So here I come back to trying to teach the pig to fly, and he may or may not fly, he or she may not fly. But ultimately, that if you sat them down and put your numbers spreadsheet in front of them and said, how about you put yourself, and this is if you're out there and you're not a general contractor and you're a sub and you're working for general contractors, you need to understand this, that if I sat you down and we looked at a know your numbers spreadsheet, and you realized how much money there wasn't in what we do, and the level of risk that we take for, warranties and guarantees and things like that, that would I guess squash some of the aggravation that the guys, or the shit they give you about, well, you should pay me $70 an hour because I'm a friggin' ninja. And you're like, bro, you don't get it. I don't care if you're a ninja. What's happening is the market is not allowing me to give you that money. It's not there. You're asking me to pull that out of my budget and my bank, that it does not exist. The business does not work if you're going to come, and that's why they end up walking down the road. Try it on someone else. And even if they do get someone who says, oh, okay, I think you're okay, I'll give you a shot. I guarantee you, 2 or 3 weeks, they're down the road. It's like, can't afford you, too expensive.
And a lot of the guys too that I've hired that are expensive. I know there's guys that are out there that are good and deliver, but more often than not, the guy who asks for the big bucks is often the biggest dud. He's often the one that the only reason why he's asking for a big amount of money is because he can't work with anybody or he doesn't really have the skills. And I found that the guys with the big money are often the biggest disappointment. So, you know, how you get paid is value in the market is based on supply and demand. We know that. That's basic economic theory, is supply and demand. So you just simply have to ask yourself, like, you know, what you're worth, and you have to look at your market. Like, what is a ticketed carpenter out there getting? There's a lot of carpenters out there. It's not like I'm not having a hard time, but this is why electricians get paid more than carpenters, because there's less electricians than carpenters.
Let's talk about that too. Here's something. This is something else I realized. When, you know, you and everyone's going to be nodding. If you're a carpenter, a general contractor, you're like, yeah, why is it that I'm paying an electrician $85 an hour, Canadian, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I do have some. You know, I originally thought, gee, I should have been a plumber, because they're slaying it, absolutely. But obviously, the thing is, they come to a job site and they might be on 3 or 4 job sites in a day, so they're only doing 1 or 2 hours. Yeah. So, you know, that's why their hourly rate is a little bit more. But I would offer as a negotiator, I'm saying, if we're doing this big project, you know you're not going to be here for 2 hours. So how about let's talk a deal. Yeah. So your ability to negotiate as a general contractor with these subs, you know, is certainly, that's as important as doing a deal with a homeowner.
Well, the advantage that I have with my guys is I sell for them. So my subs actually don't...
You get man cover.
Yeah, so they don't charge me the same prices that they would clients, because they don't have to deal with the hassle of clients. They're not selling.
So their customer acquisition, there's recurring business because you just keep giving them...
Exactly. If he's over budget and and there's a small, I will just pay him to get the job done. With the homeowner, he's going to have to fight tooth and nail. And going back to plumbers, you know, when your plumber shows up, you got to remember his van is probably worth more than, you know, the tools and the equipment a plumber has in his van.
Some specialized stuff.
So yeah, when he shows up there and he gets the job done in 15 minutes, that's because he has years and years of knowledge. You're not paying him for 15 minutes of time. So this goes back to that value. He's providing value. I'll pay a guy what he's worth if he's delivering value and he's a positive addition to the team. He will get the north end of the pay spectrum. But there is also so much we can offer. Like you say, I'm not going to pay somebody, give my employee all the gravy when I'm out there selling, taking all the risk, putting my neck on the line, putting my face on the line, when the employee, all he has to do is show up at 8 a.m., go home at 4:30 and pack his lunch.
It's a compromise. It's like, this is what I said just off air, is that you've got 2 options. You either sell yourself at wholesale or you sell yourself at retail. You understand the rules of engagement at both levels, and you understand there's a price variance, and go and pick your mark. Yeah. Like go and do your time in wholesale world. And then once you think you've got the chops, and this is where I guess Smith & Sons as a franchise organization, and we cover all of those things, you know, from mindset to management and marketing and mentoring and what's the last one? Business mastery. You know, that's the whole package, right? Yeah. So once you've cut your teeth and you've got a fairly good understanding of process and systems, now you want to go, because there is definitely more money in retail, but there's more risk as well. A story that I was just thinking of while you were talking is when I finished my apprenticeship with the guy I did my time with, old Phil Usher, and then what happened was he would build, I don't know, 100, 200, 500 townhouses a year. And it was this play on economic sort of situations where it would either be feast or famine. There'd either be no work on or there'd be a lot of work on. And Phil would sort of say, so in the slow times, you're battling to keep yourself busy, right? So you're working for some rates that are pretty low on the wholesale spectrum even. And then when things would turn around, all of a sudden there was so much work going on, you couldn't actually... Phil would say this. He would say, well, I'm the only one with some work when the business was slow. You know, we're talking, you know, hundreds of townhouses. So and everyone was queuing up because Phil always had the work when it was slow. Yeah. Then when the work got busy, you'd be like, right, now I can get some more money because he's needing me. And you know what he would say? Mate, there's 100 guys standing behind you. This is the rate. So when it was busy, I couldn't get a good rate. And when it was slow, I couldn't get a good rate. Like, he had the wholesale thing dialed into a T.
Yeah.
He had both at the top end of the market when it was busy and the low end. And so that's because both things, even then when work was slow and work was busy, you are still getting purchased at wholesale.
Exactly.
It just meant when it was busy, he was making more money.
Yeah.
And so we should. I mean, he just finished a $180 million, $200 million high rise on the Gold Coast. I mean, I can't imagine the sleepless nights that he'd go through doing those sorts of projects.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're trying to ram home, is that we don't want to try and, make you fly. And like, a man convinced against his will is unconvinced still. So if you're not going to see it and realize it, then there's nothing you or me, and we're fairly good at sales. We can't convince these guys and gals. Then they've just got to start doing their own little bit of research and figuring out the difference between wholesale and retail, and understand there's no risk at wholesale. There's a bunch of risk at retail.
Yep.
There's more work to do branding. The more marketing messages have got to be more succinct and more accurate and more niche. Over here, exactly what you say. You literally show up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and you quit at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah.
Paychecks in the, like, it's that
You can't
simple.
have your cake and eat it too. You can't have
it's the compromise.
Exactly. No boss in the world is going to give his employees all the profits and all the fruits of his hard work. He's going to keep that for himself. I like you say, the sleepless nights, the stress, the money we've put into this, when things go bad, the employee doesn't get the phone call. The employee, it can just find another job. Well, you're out of business, Alex. Sorry, it didn't work out. Well, now I've got to go into bankruptcy. I've got to sell my trucks. I got to sell my tools.
You gotta liquidate.
I got to liquidate. It's not just call up.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The guys at wholesale working for you, right? I understand they've got truck payments and they've got to feed their family, and I get that. We're not downplaying that at all. You've got commitments.
Yeah.
But you can't live in that world and make the retail money.
Yeah.
So you've got to live within your means. We all have to do that.
Yeah.
For us as a brand and a business in this country, I can't tell you that it's 6 figures that we're negative at the moment.
Yeah.
Because and that's us as the business owners. Effectively, your balance sheet or your profit and loss is going to look is going to look better than ours.
Yeah.
But because we are throwing so much money into developing a brand and a business, that's the psychology. It's a 2 to 5 year game.
Yeah.
So these people that working on wholesale rate don't have to wait. There's your money. Boom. You got it from the start. You as a business owner, you're shelling out. You're paying out money all the time. You're investing. You're reinvesting. You're sacrificing. Instead of going out on the weekend, you put that money back into something that helps the business. That's a business mindset.
Yeah.
That's why you will master the art of business, as opposed to someone who's been a carpenter for 20 years and doesn't want to make the jump across to a retail business.
Yeah. But they've got their lifestyle. Like there's give and take for each
But they want
way.
more money.
Exactly.
Without actually changing their business model. They just go, well, because I've been in it longer. Just because I've been playing the game for 20 years doesn't automatically mean that you're going to get the retail amount.
For sure. You have to go out, learn how to sell your services, learn how to make guarantees, and learn how to take risks. When you do that, then you can ask for the higher and higher rates, because that's what the customer is paying for. You just have to reverse that your position, like you say, when you're going to go buy something, right?
Yep.
So yeah, the example I like to give is my story. Is like I started literally right at the bottom with no skills, and I was always had the mentality that I was going to learn as much as I can, and then get to a point and then use my knowledge to build a business off of. And it's always been goal for me to do the construction business. So like I say, when you're younger and you don't understand the intricacies of running a business, you want more money, you'll be like, well, why don't, it's only $1, $2, $3, $4 an hour, but that adds up on the opposite side. So I climbed the ladder all the way up to as much as I could make hourly working for a company. And there's perks too. This is probably another conversation, but you don't really want to take more than $35 an hour from an employee, because the direct taxes are not going to be, you're going to take a negative nosedive. So there's there's ways that can be offset with like vehicle allowances and cell phone allowances where you know, that kind of offsets that. But I reached the top of my spectrum. You know, I made as much as I could with my company that I was working with. I had all the perks. You know, it worked out. You know, this was a few years ago, so it worked out in like the mid 30s I was getting, and it was plenty enough for me to live off of. Sure. You know, I was living paycheck to paycheck.
But you're not building a business.
But I'm not building a business. And this is why
guys will think they're in wholesale mode thinking they're building a business. You are a self-employed person.
If you don't have employees, you are self-employed. The moment you have employees, you are a business.
All right, so let's wrap up. I think that the best way to pull those two subject matters together is to not to try and sell to the unsellable. Don't try and convince somebody against their will.
Be realistic.
Yep. And I think ultimately, especially in the retail, when you're trying to sell to retails, it's all about numbers. So if you're going to recruit, don't just get 2 resumes.
Yep.
And if you're going to go and try and convert, you know, if you want to try and sell in the retail, in the, you know, the residential construction marketplace, you're going to have to do numbers. You want to get, I don't know, 8 to 10 to 12 leads a month. So you can select, because you will find there the people that are quality orientated.
They're always out there.
The secret's in the numbers.
Yes.
It's just you got to do more. But, you know, then we start talking about marketing and lead gen and blah, blah, blah. But you can see the secret is actually getting top of funnel and then just keep on doing and perfecting and honing and getting better. Any last words? Yeah,
like I say, for guys who are looking as employees, you know, just be realistic. If you're good and you have your own tools, you know, there are a lot of good contractors out there that are willing to pay fair wages, but please understand that you are not the business owner. You know, you are the muscle and you are swinging the nail, and the business does not grow without that person. But you also have to understand that the business owner has a business to run, and there's going to be no business if he can't sell his services at an affordable cost.
Alrighty. So if that's been good for you and you like what you heard, you've been with Max and Al, and we've been talking about how you can't make pigs fly, and it also bothers the pig. If you got any questions, hit us up in the questions below. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and certainly if you've got any questions specifically to do with this subject or any other, email me at max@businessforbuilders.ca and we will get back to you. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and we'll see you again soon.